You are listening to the Wannabe Collective, your new variety podcast featuring every fandom that you could possibly think of. On the Wannabe Collective, all wannabes are welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Keeping It Real from Wannabe Critic Productions. As you can tell, it's been a while since we posted, and just as life continues to kind of ramp up for all of us in various aspects, when we have stuff to post, we'll post it. But yeah, it's nice to sit down and podcast tonight, and I'm happy to be here with my fellow co-hosts this evening. Tonight we're going to be reviewing The Last Jedi, and tonight I have with me Caleb Henley, Rex Tucker, and Elijah Middlesworth. Elijah is returning. He was here for the last episode, and I believe, was it just, Caleb, was it just me, you, and Elijah last time?
Well, yeah, that was for Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah, that was Return of the Jedi. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then we had, I've already forgotten who we had on for...
I think it was just me, you, and Rex.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
But tonight we are continuing our journey through the Star Wars saga by reviewing the 8th film in the Skywalker saga, and I'm super excited. Rex can't stay for the entire thing, which is cool. So we don't want to waste too much time, doing whatever. We probably want to get right into the meat of the the discussion.
Don't let me push you guys. It's fine if I bounce early, whatever.
I want you here. I want you here for the entirety of this discussion, and then we're gonna have a party when you leave. You freaking traitor! All
Once Rex leaves, we're just gonna go completely fanboy for The Last Jedi, I think.
Literally, yeah, exactly. Before we get into it, though, Caleb, how you feeling tonight, man?
I'm good, man. It's been a good time. Do you want me to do the whole thing where I just briefly talk about what I've been up to? Do we want to do that?
Yeah, let's
okay.
We'll go around the table. We've been, this is going to release this, who knows, this will probably be Christmas before this even comes out. So, but yeah, let us know what you've been up to. What's been going on?
So the only thing I'll really say, oh geez, God, there's like a tornado coming through here. The only thing that's really been going on for me, I've been playing Jurassic World Evolution 2, which has been the game I've been playing recently, which is super random and unlike kind of anything I've ever played before, but I've been kind of like addicted to it. It's been really fun. I like it. It only came out like a couple of weeks ago or something, but yeah, it's been good. And that's basically it. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I've seen you playing that on PlayStation, and I was super tempted to buy it on PC. But I don't know, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about it, but that type of game always interests me. So I might pick it up on a Steam sale or something. But
I didn't even know that they were making a second one.
Yeah. Lots of people bought the first one and really enjoyed it. So there you have it.
I'll have to buy it for Allie. That was Allie's favorite game for a while.
Well, no one cares about Allie. All right.
Sorry, she's not here. Sorry.
God, this is the boys' hour. No, I'm just kidding. We are female friendly here. Rex is chomping on something. What are you eating? Is that pad thai or something?
No, it's just some Mexican food.
Oh.
After this, I'm rushing to my friend's house. We're having a little game night. So.
Oh, you hopping on that Halo Infinite grind again?
No, not tonight. But we're just playing board games and stuff.
Oh, dope. Speaking of board games, it's not necessarily a board game. Elijah's here, as I mentioned before. So I'm gonna break it. I'm gonna make it crystal clear for you guys. We had a very emotional Star Wars RPG session a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
2 of the party members. I don't want to give too much away because this is gonna be a podcast, that we're gonna release for people to listen to. And I think I'll say it here that officially, Storytime, a Star Wars podcast, is going to be turning into Storytime, a Star Wars RPG podcast. It'll be tying into that original, that story that me and Ethan kind of worked on. But I'm not gonna lie, two of the original party members in our party almost died in the same encounter the other night, and
it was really close.
Tears were almost shed. It was pretty intense. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with the world.
I do remember falling to the floor at least for one of those, quite literally.
Yeah, I remember. It's kind of funny. Elijah just walks off camera because it was he was just he like couldn't take it. Elijah gets into it, man. It's pretty awesome. So, but Rex, sorry, I didn't mean to divert the attention away from you. What else has been new from you?
I was just busy with work and stuff and looking at NFTs all day and playing Halo.
That sounds like a good life to me. That's pretty much what I do too. So, yeah. Briefly, we'll throw it over to Elijah. What's been up? What's been up in your world, bro?
Not a whole lot. Finally, was able to send you over some Beer Bros East Side content, so hopefully that'll go up soon. And then, other than that, just playing Vanguard a lot. Me and Allie really dig that game. We've been playing it like crazy. Also been getting back into Red Dead. Been playing that with the boys too. And I got a German Shepherd puppy. He's 10 weeks old, and so he might be barking in the background eventually at some point. So, other than that, it's been pretty normal around here.
Sounds like an eventful time for you over there in the old east side, because it's east of me. Caleb Henley, is everything okay with your weather? Can you hear us right now?
Yeah, I can. I'm checking because it sounds insane out there. So yeah, please disregard. Go on, and if I get swept away, just
we're gonna watch Caleb just fly away.
Literally, the back of Caleb's house just just dissipates, and it's like, well, that was weird. Anyways,
a great TikTok short.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Anyways, The Last Jedi. No, we are here to talk about it, to continue our review of the series, and it's been an interesting time going back through these movies again for another time and talking about them with a full panel. And for me personally, this is probably my favorite of the three movies so far. I still haven't watched The Last Skywalker, but I loved this movie whenever it first came out. So, or not The Last Skywalker, The Rise of Skywalker, excuse me. I love this movie whenever it came out. I've watched it since, and each time I watch it, I find more and more things that I dislike about this movie. But I also have a couple of arguments I'd like to make this evening around some of the bigger things that we find in this movie that I think kind of get a bad rep, excuse me. But we'll get into it. So we're gonna get into the kind of the pros and cons of The Last Jedi. But I wanted to throw it open to you guys. What was your first impression, if you can remember it, the first time you watched this movie?
I guess I'll go first. So I have the same feeling watching this movie now that I did when I first watched it, and that is like just this mixed, weird feeling. Because there is a lot of good in this movie, and there's also a lot of just like rough, like bad. So it's like a weird, bittersweet feeling that I don't think I'd ever really experienced with the Star Wars movie before, because it just feels so different, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's just really, really different.
Okay. Rex?
I kind of know what Caleb's talking about, but for me, it was just more like shock. Like, I was shocked by everything I was seeing. And some of it was like good shocked, and some of it was bad shocked. But I left feeling like, whoa, what is happening? You know?
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, first time I watched it, I was like, oh my god, like that's as good as The Last Jedi or the Empire Strikes Back. Like, I've said that many a time on this podcast. But yeah, like there's so much that happens in this movie. It's insane. Like, anyways, I'll get to it more in a minute. Elijah, what was your first impression when you watched this movie?
So I'll give you two different impressions. So the first time I watched it, I was a little bit different than you guys. I walked out thinking that this was Empire's ugly stepsister. I was not impressed with it at all when it first came out. But now watching it today, like I literally just finished the film probably 3 hours ago. There is a lot of good. I'll comment on Caleb with this. There's a lot of good in this movie. There's a lot of things I would change, but what was used there That's a very good movie, and I'm gradually starting to like it more and more the more I watch it.
So you're hip on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I want to make this very clear. Like, I don't dislike this movie. Like, I don't hate on it, but I do find things more and more where I'm like, there's certain things that just felt so intentional,
Yeah.
that I don't know, just kind of start to like piss me off after a while. So we'll get
I hope
into
it's
it.
not because of us, Gabe.
No, it's definitely not. I think it's just with time, like, we talk about things standing the test of time, right? So I don't know. Like, part of it, I think part of it I do think comes from doing this podcast and just being behind the microphone for so long, and like literally we show up there for a while. It was every week we would talk about movies, or now it's like every other week we show up and talk about movies. But it's gone beyond that for me now. Like, you whenever you do this and you're trying to put on like a production for people to like potentially enjoy across multiple platforms, like you want to give something that seems worthwhile that hasn't been said before already. And I think you just kind of start to look at things with more of a critical eye outside of just enjoying it whenever you're going to be putting time into making a production out of what is being said. And I think the question that comes down to mind is like, how is this, how does this stack up for my time? Like, is this worth my time for me to, and that's not even saying like I'm such an important person or anything like that. It's not that. It's just literally, to take the time to sit down and watch this movie, formulate thoughts about it, take notes, and, talk about it with you guys and then make a podcast out of it. Like, right. That's an undertaking. It's more of an undertaking now for me than it was just a few months ago. But, like I said, things change and time passes on.
Right. And it's not like you're just watching a 2-hour-long movie. You have all the other things tied into it, too.
Right.
It's more than just sitting on the couch for a couple hours.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. But that's a lot of this for me is coming from a person that loves Star Wars. And, my score at the end of this is going to be more focused around like, okay, how can I marry these two things of like trying to be as objective as possible while still being a fan? Mm-hmm. And, I'm happy with the score that I have written down. I have a very detailed, I haven't taken notes on a show in a long time. Like, it's been a long time. But I think I'm going to start because it really helped, with my like review process, my personal review process. So, but anyways, let's get more onto, the meat of this discussion. So The Last Jedi was released in 2017, has a runtime of 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 32 minutes, 2 hours and 32 minutes rather. I have Rotten Tomatoes pulled up, but I don't have IMDb pulled up. Hold on one sec. So the synopsis of this movie is the Star Wars saga continues as new heroes and galactic legends go on an epic adventure, unlocking mysteries of the Force and shocking revelations of the past. That's literally the IMDb description. Maybe we should frickin' read Wikipedia. Jesus.
Yeah, that's about as vague as it possibly
literally
can get.
Yeah.
Okay, this is better. It says Star Wars the Last Jedi, also known as Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi, is a 2017 American epic space opera film written and directed by Rian Johnson, produced by Lucasfilm and distributed by Walt Disney Studio Motion Pictures, yada yada yada. The Last Jedi is part of a new trilogy of films announced after Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm in October 2012. It was produced by Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, yada yada yada. We know all this. Where's the freaking plot? There it is. Well, we can summarize this. It's fine. Literally, it takes place like moments after the last movie. Like it takes place right after.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of throws me off about this movie sometimes is that it is so like after the fact. Go ahead, Caleb.
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say, I mean, if you wanted to summarize this movie, probably the best way to do it is just read the whatever it is, the crawl. And then that's basically, I mean, there's not a whole lot after that happens with the crawl, because I think in the crawl it talks about Rey going to find Luke and about the rebels being on the run from the First Order, and that's basically it. Like that's the whole thing. Like
that's the plot of the movie.
Yeah, that's the whole plot of the movie.
And the whole movie takes place within like 6 hours.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, that's weird. That's really weird to think about.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think that honestly could be part of the weakness of this trilogy is that there's time that's passed, right, from the OG trilogy. Like and even in the original movies, there's a little bit of time that has passed between the first movie, or all of those movies. But in this one, it's like boom, boom. It like takes place one right after the other, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. I think sometimes, and it's like within a 6 or 7 hour period, like you're telling me Rose, Tico, and Finn could meet each other and fall in love within that amount of time. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that tonight, but good God. I think Caleb summarized it best, though. The rebels are on the run, and Rey is training with Luke, and
we got to free the animals. And
yeah.
Adios mio. God.
That's about it. So just out of curiosity, what do you think what do you guys think this is sitting on for Rotten Tomatoes? Not that we use this as a compass, right? I will never use this as a compass. More recently I've even said like award shows, like award anything. I'm not using that as a compass for anything.
Critics
a basis
or audience?
For anything. Both. What do you think the critics gave it?
A 6
on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think Last Jedi is one of the highest rated critically on Rotten Tomatoes of all the Star Wars movies. I feel like it's like a 93.
Okay. What do you
I was
think?
going to
Chris?
say. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Rex.
I was just gonna say it's out of 100.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know.
And I think the audience score is probably around 60.
68. I don't know.
What do you think, Elijah?
I'm going to say critics was more like an 87 and audience probably a 60.
The tomato meter is a 91% for critics and a 42% for audience.
Did Ethan buy like a bunch of tickets to this movie?
He just created a bunch of user accounts on Rotten
Literally.
Tomatoes.
Oh my God. What did he say a couple episodes ago? He literally hate watches this movie. I didn't even ask him to come on tonight because I knew he was going to say no.
Him and Ryan both are just like sitting there just trolling.
Well, and here's the thing.
I kind of wanted their opinion though.
It's on past episodes. You can go find it on Age of Geek. Here's the thing. This is for the record. Anyone who's paid attention to this production house for any amount of time, there is a lot of really bad things in this movie. Like, there's just no getting around it.
Yeah.
It's like Rian Johnson. And here's the thing. I feel like Rian Johnson gets so much hate. Here's the fact of the matter, ladies and gentlemen. He did something different that's never been done in Star Wars, ever. He tried to do something different. But it's like he did it with an intent to piss people off. Go ahead, Caleb.
I will say, like, I'm all for somebody doing something different in Star Wars. And, we have so much Star Wars content out there that's great. But when it comes to, the Skywalker saga or whatever, and those original characters of Han, Luke, and Leia, and Chewbacca, and, all of that, there's a certain, I don't know, like, care that needs to be taken because those are almost seem as, like, sacred characters. I just wish that, maybe if they'd given Rian Johnson Rogue One, or if they'd given him another Star Wars story type thing, or, there's been talk of him having his own trilogy of movies. I'd be all for that because I think he's, a good director and he does great stuff. Like, his other movie I think of was like Knives Out. I love that movie. Like, it's fantastic. But yeah, him just coming in just like, what? I'm going to take this thing and just make it my own different thing without any real like necessary like care as to how this is going to line up with the 7 movies that came before it. That's the thing that's just like so jarring about this movie that makes it really, really tough. And then that translates to the next movie as well, which kind of sucks. It just kind of threw a wrench in a whole trilogy, which is just really, really rough.
Caleb, I love you for what you just said. I'm just saying.
I second that.
Here's the thing. I have really good things. I have high praises for this movie. And I don't think Rian Johnson is a bad actor. I think he saw this as an opportunity to get his name out there. Because I think whenever you say the name Rian Johnson, back in 2017, people are going, who is Ryan Johnson?
Yeah.
So I feel like he got handed this opportunity to make a name for himself, and he saw it, as any artistic directive type person would. If it were me, I would try and make bold decisions with a Star Wars film. I make bold decisions, every week in our freaking Star Wars D&D session. It's like, I don't know if that was the right decision, but I'm going for it, right? But literally whenever the people around you, like Mark Hamill is on record as saying, like, Ryan, stop. Like, this isn't what the fans want. Now, it's interesting because he was saying that about Luke Skywalker. And to me, this is some of the best Luke Skywalker we get ever. And I love the Luke Skywalker we get in this movie. And I know a lot of people don't, and that's fine. Like, we might argue about it tonight. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. But I'm just saying, it's funny hearing, Mark Hamill on record saying that, because the advice for me goes in other directions, not necessarily towards Luke Skywalker. And there was just a lot here that I just didn't like, after 4 or 5 years of sitting on it now at this point. I mean, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, 4 years ago.
I actually don't have any problem with how they portrayed Luke.
Me either.
I think it's fine that he became a grumpy old man or whatever.
Everyone else did.
I don't have that problem with that either.
Yeah. All the other Jedis did. All of his masters did. Like, it's evident that this isn't just Luke's story anymore. So, go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry. Go ahead, Caleb.
No, I was just going to say, I think my problem with Luke is him getting forced or ghosted or dusted or whatever at the end of this movie, instead of also being... I don't know why they decided with these 3 movies that, Han, Luke, and Leia, each one of them only gets like 1 movie, and then they have to die and become like a ghost side character in like one of the next movie. Like, I don't understand why they can't have the whole gang back together again for just the entire trilogy of movies. Like, I get that they want to introduce new characters and feed a new generation, but stop killing off these beloved characters that are, again, to the Star Wars community, sacred. Like,
or
you don't have to kill them off.
Or at least have them be in one movie all together at once.
Exactly.
Because Han never got to see Luke, or vice versa. Leia and Chewie are the only medium there. If those 4 could have gotten together for at least 30 minutes of a movie, I would have been 100%
Well,
pleased.
and let's be 100% transparent here, right? We're all huge Star Wars fans. There might be half an hour total across all 3 movies where all of those characters are together. So I understand the argument, and it is like one of those things for me where it's like, yeah, it would have been awesome to have them all together, at least for even just a handful of scenes total.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But most of their movies, they're separated a lot of the time, except for A New Hope. Go ahead, Caleb.
I'll say this, though, they're a gang. We don't even get Han and Lando together. We don't get Luke and Lando together. Like, they've all been through stuff, and yeah, sure, if you wanted to count the screen time minutes of the original trilogy, yeah, maybe they're not on the screen for 2 hours a movie, like, together, but we don't get like a single minute of that in this sequel trilogy.
I agree with you.
And that's
I'm agreeing with you.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too, like, I hate, this is a really weird thing to say, I hate that I like this movie more than The Force Awakens.
I wouldn't. No, I don't fault you for that.
I hate that I do like it, though, because it feels like I should like The Force Awakens more, but I don't. For the simple reason that freaking Luke Skywalker is in this movie, and I love Luke Skywalker, and that's what it was for me. The first time I watched it, it was like, holy crap, Luke Skywalker's back, right, for this movie. And Yoda came back, and we had that thing again, right? It was just like, and that was my hang-up for so long. I was like, yeah, say what you want about this movie. Luke Skywalker was in it for almost the entire thing, and it was freaking dope. Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, that proves a point. There's 2 ways to view this movie. There's viewing this movie as a standalone movie, or viewing this movie as part of a trilogy.
Boom.
So, as a part of a trilogy, The Force Awakens works better, because it doesn't mess anything up.
Yeah.
and this doesn't because it messes everything up.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Yeah, you're exactly right, and it's one of those things like, look, having a great character story, which that's what this movie is. Like, they try really hard to focus on a handful of characters in this movie, and those handful of characters are Ben Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Rey. The issue is they tried to tell another 5 or 6 character story in this one movie, and it's like there's just too much of nothing happening throughout this entire freaking movie. And I'm watching it, I'm like, God, this is gorgeous. Like, I love the way this looks. I love seeing Luke Skywalker and Rey because this feels authentic Star Wars to me. Like, this is, yes, this makes sense for Luke to go this way. Like, our triumphant savior to have his fall, it has to happen because we established Star Wars is almost cyclical at this point. Like, the Chosen One is a myth. And, like, I like how this movie... Go ahead, Rex.
I had never actually thought kind of about that issue of not having the whole gang back together. And for me, it was never really a big deal. Like, I don't know, I just didn't feel really attached to those characters. Like, I think that some people might have felt. But now that I think about it, it is like part of this Skywalker, series trilogy that's part of 2 other trilogies that's literally about the Skywalkers.
It's in the DNA of the freaking story.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes a left turn from here at this movie, And I think if you take the movie, kind of the same thing I thought with the 7, the last one, is if you take this movie and just stand alone, like you guys are saying, it's really good. It's shot well. It's directed well. I think Rian Johnson took some liberties probably with the Star Wars universe and like what you could do inside the Star Wars universe,
Which is fine.
Yeah.
To an extent.
It's fine with some people. I think, diehard fans, I think, care about that stuff a little bit more. And like, the whole thing with Leia floating through space and stuff like that. It's like, I get what he was trying to do and like really make you think that she was done for. But that's just not something that seems feasible in the Star Wars universe. Well, at least not yet.
And I think here's the thing. There's no... Had we had that scene that we get in The Rise of Skywalker where Luke and Leia are training in the forest, had we had that in The Force Awakens and said like, yeah, like Leia was going to like, go off and do her own thing, had we had that then, we could have wrote off Superman Leia.
It would have made a lot more sense.
It would, and here's the thing: if you are a fan of the EU, you should know Leia is Force sensitive, and she is training to become a Jedi. Like literally, that's in the Thrawn trilogy. Go ahead, Caleb.
Or I was gonna say, if we've seen the Force do other spectacular things on that scale before, like I'm thinking, something almost like from Force Unleashed, where like Starkiller's pulling down a Star Destroyer, or I always think about like, man, it would have been so cool in this movie if like when Luke goes out on Crate and he just like with the Force destroys all of those walkers, just like crushes them or whatever. Like just you see like the Force used on that scale again. Because that's the thing that's weird about it is we know that Leia isn't in the classical sense like a Jedi. Like she's not carrying around a lightsaber. So just to see her do something with the Force on that scale where she's like near death, frozen, pulling herself back, a long ways through the dark, vacuum of space. It just doesn't make sense because it's on a scale that we haven't quite seen from a Force user that we don't really know how powerful in the Force she is because it's the first time we're ever seeing her use any Force abilities.
Yeah, well, and go ahead.
I was just going to say devil's advocate too is, this might be that moment. Now we truly get to see how powerful she is. We all know she's Force sensitive. I mean, we saw it in Jedi, Caleb. She felt that Luke made it off the Death Star. We all know.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Yeah.
So this could be the true testament to show she actually is either trained or well versed in, Jedi teachings.
And I have something to say after Rex has his point. Go ahead, Rex.
Yeah, it's just that we don't know, especially because they canceled all extended universe stuff. Like, I think before this trilogy came out, right?
Yeah,
So-
Legends.
So yeah, so we don't even really know if she became a Jedi at all, because of Legends is gone. Like, that stuff doesn't mean anything anymore to Disney, and so it's like,
At this point in time.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
and-
that's quickly retconned though with the next movie. Like, yeah, she tried, but she's like, nope, not doing it anymore. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, and I think to my point, I guess is like to the average viewer who maybe isn't as in depth with the extended universe stuff or the Legends stuff, they may have not ever thought of Leia as being that, even though she's, a Skywalker and all of that, and they just maybe have never made that connection that it's on that level. So, I mean, while seeing it is supposed to be this cool kind of like eye-opening moment, it feels weird because it's not in any sense subtle. It's almost better when it's just like more well balanced, but it's like taken to such an extreme that it makes it jarring, if that makes it any sense.
It would have been different had she been like just right there in that room still and then been like, oh, I can grab it. But I mean, she literally like is Supermaning across space. And my argument back in the day was like, look, we had nods that Luke was force sensitive. He talked to Ben Kenobi, right? And in A New Hope, he was training with the thing that he wasn't expressly like, force pulling anything. But then when Empire came out, whenever he grabs the lightsaber after he's dangling in the Wampa cave, right? That's what it was, right? Or Wampa? Yeah, he's like
Wampa.
dangling Wampa cave and like grabs the lightsaber and struggles to grab it, but still gets it. We were like, oh, right. But those subtleties are there for Leia's character inside of like Return of the Jedi, like as what. But what are you gonna remember more? Luke Skywalker doing stuff like that, having those small little subtleties, or that like one or two times that Leia was like, "Oh yeah, I know," or then the fact that they alluded to the fact that Leia might be force sensitive whenever Yoda was like, "No, there is another," right? Like, no, we're not thinking about that because Leia has not lit up a lightsaber and shown us that she can throw down, and she has not done anything.
And
Except just go ahead, Rex.
how dope would it have been if they showed some like battle scene where she just like force pushes some stormtroopers or
Yes,
something like that,
Yeah.
something,
or even just like force pulled something to her, like something like simple and just subtle. Like
anything.
you get that end scene with the kid that just kills me, force pulling the broom to himself in this movie. Like even if it was just something stupid and subtle like that with Leia, just to show, because I don't know. I just feel like it would have worked better in a sense if we just knew that was something that was in her grasp to do.
And I mean, it's one of those things to like research the expanded universe and realize like, oh, she's actually like, a relatively formidable force user, like if she wanted to be, but she chooses not to. We don't have any of that, right? So that's literally taking just a couple hints of stuff and Rian Johnson just running with it. And I do think it's a combination of Carrie Fisher passing away, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
That has to be a huge part of it because, I think they wanted her to have her moment, and I don't know, but it doesn't change the fact that if I had a 10-year-old and he was watching this, watching this happen, I feel like the 10-year-old response would be like, what? What was that? But
That was a nod. That was a nod to everyone that knew the situation that was happening when that movie was released. Because I mean,
Totally.
Ryan, I guarantee you that was the reason why he did that.
That's
And it
kind of how I
worked.
feel too.
It
Yeah.
worked though because Allie, sitting next to me in the movie theater, we're all decked out in our Star Wars gear and our costumes, and she's sitting there bawling her eyes out. And I'm like, "What's the problem? That she's alive. It's okay." And she's like, "But she's not in real life." It worked. It worked in that sense.
That was my first thing that hit me, whenever I saw it. So I gave it a pass for so many times, but it's like, okay, Carrie Fisher's been dead for a few years now. Like, how does it objectively tie into this experience? And, as someone who literally edits videos for a living, I know the value of literally just like a half a second to a second of cutting something Just like, oh, that was kind of weird, or that drug on for a little too long. Like literally 1 second less could have done like, and it ends up being the thing that needs to happen. Literally, you cut that out, or literally just don't put her so far away.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yep.
it would be a lot different, you know, like, but yeah. Anyways, I feel like also the conversation is way more interesting revolving around the problems we have about this movie, and then we can complement it in the things that we like towards the end. So go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, and the whole reason that she's floating in space is because for whatever reason that ship's shields are so like far out that the TIE fighters are able to like slip through the shields of that, ship and blow up a hangar and the bridge, which is something we've never seen in Star Wars before either.
Totally.
So we saw there was, I think that was part of it too that made it so weird and jarring, is like now it's almost like you're breaking Star Wars, the way Star
Logic.
Wars works. Yeah, logic. And it's like, well, why haven't the Rebels been doing that on all of these Star Destroyers? And I guess there was a hint to it, like when we got that first scene with, Poe like going up and blowing up all the turrets on the, Dreadnought or whatever. But yeah, it just didn't make any sense because that's never been something that we've really seen other than that time that an A-Wing crashed through the bridge of a Star Destroyer. But they had said after their shields were like down and damaged, in Return of the Jedi, but seeing that in this with the shields up and you can visibly see it, and it just broke Star Wars logic a little bit too much, and it was a little bit too different than anything that we'd ever seen before. It just made it feel like, and that just doesn't fit, if that makes any sense.
I want to continue on this. Go ahead, Rex. Do you have to take off?
No, I got
Oh,
a few
okay.
more minutes.
Okay, cool.
I was just going to say Poe's intro to this movie, I think, was super cringe. Like, I
love
don't know.
Poe's I love it personally. Like
I just-
whenever I don't know.
Poe's whole character in this movie is cringe, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
literally the best thing about Poe was literally his intro in this movie. Whenever he like gets
Yep.
to drift the ship, and it's like,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
that
like-
was cool. And I
Yeah.
like that they had that in the new X-Wing game and stuff, you know?
Yeah, but here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
why does Poe even exist in this series? He's a useless character. He adds
Yeah.
no value to this movie.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Caleb.
No, I was just gonna say I cannot stand the entire conflict in this movie between Poe and Hondo, or whatever her name is. I cannot
Holdo?
stand it because it's Holdo. Yeah, whatever her name is, because it doesn't make any sense at all as to why she would not just tell everybody on the ship what her
Thank
plan is.
you.
It's not like
Thank
it's not
you.
like they're going to beam it over to the Star Destroyers that are shooting at them and be like, hey, we have this secret plan that we're all going to go down to the planet. It doesn't make any sense for her to keep that secret from him, even
What a
though
good
he's
plan,
been.
by the way.
It's just
Yeah.
it's
Oh, we're going
so-
to use the escape pods. That's our plan.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, and
it's-
look at like we make the we make fun of whenever we try whenever they try and add logic, right, or add a layer of logic to science fiction. We make fun of that, and we call stuff out when it's like, nope, that's not right. Like that doesn't work. That's not how it's always been done.
And
Yeah, they're making it more into a more realistic military operation. Like,
Yeah.
why would an admiral tell a commander anything? I mean, that makes sense, but this is Star Wars. This is not, World War II or Pearl Harbor or anything like that.
And here's the thing, is their plan would have worked if she had told him, because if she had told him, they wouldn't have sent Finn and Rose on that mission to go and find the codebreaker or whatever. Right. And then the codebreaker wouldn't have sold them out to the First Order and ended up with all the ships getting blown up. If she had just told them, then they would have been able to slip off onto Crate without the, First Order ever knowing, and it would have worked because the codebreaker wouldn't have been there to tell them that they were doing that. So it didn't make any sense at all. It was so frustrating and dumb.
Yep.
Can I
Go
just
ahead.
give my final thoughts, because I got to get going?
Yeah,
And
sure.
I wish I could stay for this podcast because
It's getting heated.
I have so much to say, but I think I'll get a lot of it in the next episode. So I'll just make sure I'm there for that one. But it's just, my mind was blown every 30 minutes in this movie, and just why and how did they do this? And one of the biggest ones was the ship going light speed through Snoke's ship. It was just like, I felt so dumbfounded. Like, if this was possible, like, did they know this was possible in the past? Like, they could have done this to anything. Why didn't they do this to the Death Star? Why didn't they just run a ship through whatever they want to blow up? You know? And that scene was crazy cool looking, by the way. But it's just things like that. It just like didn't make sense. Snoke saying, you know, Kylo and Rey had a really cool connection thing going this movie. I really loved that. And Snoke's just like, oh, that was me. I connected you guys. You don't have that connection. and
then that gets retconned in the next movie.
Yeah, no kidding.
They did have a connection, right?
It's just this constant, like, these things in this movie that kind of just like blew my mind. And I left the theater thinking, like, how, why, and like maybe the next one will answer these things. Still, who is Snoke? I don't know. But also, yeah. So that's basically all my thoughts on this movie, and I'll get into more of it with the next episode. But that's basically it. And do you want me to give a rating or no?
Yeah, sure. What's your rating?
It's a 5 out of 10.
A 5?
Yeah, I just...
Whoa! Okay.
I just... Not based on anything technical, because the movie is beautiful and awesome. Like, directed, shot well, everything like that. Just based on story decisions. That's pretty much what kills it for me.
Okay. Well, hope you enjoyed your time in this podcast production house, idiot. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't worry, he makes the same threats to me, Rex.
No, Rex, thanks for your time. I know you got to go. Thank you for showing up. We really appreciate it. So.
All right. See you guys later.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm glad Rex, was there. I was, shout out to Rex. He's a real one. Now, and then there was 3. We make fun of movies like this, though. We make fun of people when we try and have logic attached to science fiction, right? I remember, shout out to Ryan Mazzacco for saying, like, there's no noise in space. Why can we hear the lasers lobbing in space? Like, over, and it's like, yeah. Elijah made a good point. Cool. It's not a World War II movie. Like, that's not a thing. Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I'm okay with this universe having different logic and for there being like, it doesn't need to be perfectly scientifically accurate, but the logic needs to add up. And just one example that I'll point out is, okay, so they blow up the bridge and, Akbar and Leia and everyone gets sucked out into space, right? Because that's what happens in space. But at the same time, you have the bombers that are just open bomb bays dropping bombs in space, gravity bombs in space onto the dreadnought. And, Rose's sister or whatever is just in open space or whatever, and it's fine. Or you have, even minutes after the bridge is exploded and Leia Supermans her way back onto the bridge, a door opens and she just walks back into the ship. Like, it's no big deal.
That was a huge thing for me. Like the bomber thing, I could get past that because, okay, maybe it's a force field situation there, but that freaking door opening before the airlock closes, that was infuriating to me.
Yes, exactly. It's like, if there's going to be a point, like an entire, like, scene or shot of the vacuum of space and people being pulled out into space, then why is there just, like, not an airlock? Like, why can't you add an airlock? Or even just, like, you have the visual effects to show a shield around the ship. Why can you not show some sort of, like, temporary, like, shield or something like you would see in front of a hangar in Star Wars? Like, why are we not seeing that? But no, you just have a door that's opening up to space and no one's getting sucked out and they just pull Leia in. It doesn't add up and it doesn't make any sense. And that is another thing that's just frustrating about this movie.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. And I mean, I think we can all agree, like, the biggest thing, I feel like it was a nod to Carrie Fisher, right?
It really was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was telling Rex to upload his audio really quick. But yeah, I mean, it's just like there's a lot of little stuff like that, right? And okay, I want to move on from the Leia thing, right? I want to tackle the next big thing about this movie, okay? That most people hate. I have a hot take for you guys, and I noticed it this time watching this movie. Everyone always hates on Canto Bight. Look it. Canto Bight, objectively, objectively, is an interesting place. The thing that ruins it is freaking using it as a plot device to bring Rose and Finn closer together.
Yeah, I have a whole spiel if you would like for me to go into it.
You have the floor.
So, Canto Bight in itself and the idea of this, casino planet or whatever, in and itself is not a bad idea. The problem, there's multiple problems with it. First off, it brings in a whole new social conflict with the wealthy that are benefiting off of the war machine that is Star Wars, which is just so unnecessary and is such a thing that we don't need to get into, and it's not going to have any sort of reconciliation anywhere in this. It's just brought in just to be a thing, and it doesn't go anywhere, and that's frustrating. Another thing too is, again, it's part of a dumb plan that is unnecessary because Holdo or whatever her name is wouldn't tell Poe what her plan was, and that makes it unnecessary. And it's a whole 30-minute scene that's added on to a 2-hour and 30-minute movie that is already long and didn't need an extra Canto Bight scene to make it long. Other thing is, it takes a character, it takes Finn, and it puts him into a romantic relationship with Rose, which is so unnecessary because he already had a connection with Rey. That is an entire movie was devoted to that connection with Rey, and you get a semblance of that. He still cares about Rey in this movie, where he takes the tracker off of Leia and he's trying to flee because he doesn't want Rey to come back into this deadly situation. And you have that whole connection, and then he just tosses it aside for Rose. And I understand that they wanted to build Rey's relationship with Kylo, but you don't have to why don't they make it a love triangle? And I know that's a little bit YPA novel, Hunger Games type thing, but you could do that and it would be way more interesting, because you don't ever even see Finn face Kylo or conflict Kylo again in this series after what happened, on Starkiller Base. That would have been awesome for them to have this thing where they're kind of fighting over their connections with Rey, where she's kind of, something that's bringing them, that would have been cool to see.
It would have been very Shakespearean.
It would have never been done before. I mean, it's never been done before, so yeah, it would have been dope.
Yeah, it would have been Shakespearean. It would have been awesome. But no, they just throw in another character and they send him off to a casino planet that makes everyone emotional, and they free the horse animal things. And then it's oh, well, now Finn's relationship with Rey is kind of pushed aside for his relationship with Rose, and it's just so stupid. It's dumb.
I kind of view it correct me if I'm wrong, but when I just got done watching the movie, I felt like that relationship was kind of one-sided. Am I wrong in feeling that way?
With Rose and Finn?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's all over me. He's yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why even in the next movie, it's yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but hit it and then quit it. You know what I mean?
Because I think he has the mentality of a 12-year-old, because he's just been brought up as a stormtrooper his entire life, so he just doesn't even know what's going on.
Yeah. Literally, quite literally, he's yeah, I have some action figures if you'd like to see them. Also some Pokemon cards. And she's cool, I love you. In 5 hours.
So the only other thing I have to say, Caleb, is I get what you're saying about the whole, war profiteering thing in your first argument. Personally, that was one part of the movie that I did appreciate.
I love that.
Because it goes to show that the Rebel in Rogue One was another good, example of this too. The Rebels are not always the good guys. Yep. They're the outer rim scum of the earth that finally was fed up with Nazi Germany, is really what it was. you know, they're bad people that are coming together to do a good cause. And I really appreciated that scene because that really brought it to the forefront for people that aren't Star Wars fans per se, or as big of fans as we are. That kind of blurred the unblurred the lines a little bit. Like, okay, the war is dirty, but you know, was it necessary? No, I don't think it was necessary in Star Wars. Did I like it? Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I just think it was done way better in Rogue One, where you're actually seeing people do something. Like you're seeing that Cassian and, you know, the general that's kind of directing Cassian on all of his stuff. Like, they're not good people
No.
at all. And you're seeing that in their actions and in their dialogue and what they do in the movie. And you get some character development on like Cassian's part too. But you don't have that. You get a hologram of a guy's ship with where it basically shows a TIE fighter and a TIE bomber and a TIE interceptor, and then it shows an X-wing. And that's the entire explanation.
Yeah. I also think that's also setting up the Codebreakers' betrayal as well, though. I mean, that's a pretty good forefront to that happening.
It is, but again, is it justified in the overall, like, presence of Canto Bight? And here's the thing. Again, they needed to create a reason to bring Rose and Finn together, and they used Canto Bight to do that. Canto Bight, to me, and the people that are on Canto Bight are very interesting. And if you're interested in our Star Wars RPG, you should probably listen to our Star Wars RPG, because we're probably going there pretty soon. Just saying.
Oh, geez, I quit.
Oh, boy. Here's what I'll say, too, is like it takes a lot of time, and Gabe said this earlier, where this movie spends a lot of time with other characters that aren't Rey, Kylo, and Luke. And that is where this movie shines, is with those three characters.
Boom.
But instead, you get the Codebreaker, and you get Rose, and you get, you know, Finn doing this stuff with the two of them. And it takes a lot of time, and it detracts a lot of attention from those three characters that are doing so much cooler things and so much more Star Warsian things in my mind that makes more sense with where this trilogy or where with these movies have gone. And I just wish that we could have gotten more time devoted to that, or more time devoted to like finding the answers to questions that we were wondering, such as like, who is Snoke? Where did he come from? Or, you know, just some of this other stuff. Or we get, you know, they introduce Maz in Force Awakens, and we get like 1 30-second scene with her in it in this movie. Like,
yeah.
why is she just left out in the way, like on the back burner? And instead we're introducing like brand new like whole characters. Like, why can't we just develop the characters that we had? I don't know. It doesn't sit right, because I don't like the Codebreaker. I don't like his character. I think he's completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about Rose. Like, it doesn't work for me.
Why would we bring in new characters to introduce and expand on when they didn't even have any scenes in the next movie? You know,
Literally.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's one of my biggest cons about this movie is I just wrote down, I was like, it feels like a toy commercial a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time. And I mean, I could see like them trying to sell, like, I don't know, there's just so much about this movie, mostly with Rose and Finn, that just screams like Batman and Robin. Like, just not good. And it's just like, it has nothing to do with Canto Bight. Everyone always throws a fit about Canto Bight. Canto Bight is cool. That is a cool place to think about and to explore. And like, yeah, had we had like a Rogue One-esque explanation for the things happening in Canto Bight and like developed that a little bit more, that would have been badass. But that didn't happen. They just made it be like, yeah, like this is Canto Bight. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I think Canto Bight is just kind of used to summarize Rose and Finn's entire arc.
Literally.
The part where they're sneaking onto the Star Destroyer, and yeah, it's like a toy commercial where you have the black BB-8 or whatever, like, you know, for like 5 seconds, so that they could sell a toy out of that.
Yep.
Or where Phasma comes out, and you have the terrible line of Chrome Dome or whatever.
Oh
yeah,
god, it made me cringe so hard.
And that whole part on the hangar of them fighting looks so just bad. And
the delivery, like, Phasma is a stupid character. Phasma is dumb.
Why is she even in this trilogy?
Here's the thing.
She does nothing.
Phasma could have been so freaking cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not have Phasma literally be the one that's like seeking out Rey or something? Like, have her have a purpose. She has a Beskar spear. Like, have her fight Rey, or have her literally be like promoted to the guard of the the Praetorian Guard. Like, have her be there or something. She just felt so wasted.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: Phasma's wasted, Poe's wasted, and borderline Finn is wasted. I'm sorry.
Yes. No, Finn is
Yeah.
absolutely wasted.
No,
100%.
he's totally wasted. Yeah, totally wasted.
So I was thinking about this just finishing the movie. The end scene made me realize why Poe is even in these movies. It's to fill Han Solo's shoes, because that whole short 2-minute or 2-second conversation between Rey and Poe on the Falcon as the credits are right before the credits roll. Hi, I'm Poe. Hey, I'm Rey. I know. What was that? What was that
Yeah,
conversation?
They're supposed to bringing in this new trio of characters in Finn, Rey, and Poe, and they don't connect the three of them.
No. And Poe is wannabe Han Solo, and they never develop him. He'd be a great Han Solo replacement, 100%. But they never develop him, and that's a shame. Because Poe is an interesting character. I don't know if you read the comics or not, but those comics are
Super cool.
Yeah,
And
pretty
Oscar- And Oscar Isaac's a great actor.
Oh man, he's a great actor. He's a
so
great
good.
individual. He's a great individual. No
Literally,
matter what.
he is like literally on the same acting prowess as literally like amongst like the likes of like Alec Guinness. Like
Yes,
he's like
absolutely.
classically trained. Like he's a really
Absolutely.
good actor, and they
not
just
just-
waste him.
Not just a good actor, but a good musician. The guy all
God.
around is an amazing dude. You know,
And then they have him
okay.
saying stuff like permission to get into a X-wing and blow some stuff up. Like, what are we
What are we
doing?
Okay, we've talked about so much negative. Okay, here's what I have written down. It's too long. We talked about Rose and Finn. I said Canto Bight is interesting, but using it as a plot device to propel Finn and Rose is dumb. It feels like a commercial sometimes, a toy commercial. We didn't even talk about the general plot of them running out of gas, essentially, which is dumb. That's all the negatives I have. We've been talking for almost an hour. I want to spend some time talking about some good things. But before we do, Caleb, you have one final negative thing you can say about this
Yeah,
movie.
just one more negative thing that I want to get off my chest, and then I'll shut up and we can talk about all the good in this movie. Look, I hate playing the numbers game in movies unnecessarily. So there's a part where, they're giving their speech on the ship, and they say there's 400 of us and 3 ships, and that's all of the resistance that's left at the moment. But, we're the spark that's going to ignite the galaxy and whatever. I hate that they give the number, there's 400 of us, because then you see,
At
ship
the end of the
after
movie,
ship, ship after ship get destroyed. And then, 5 ships make it down to Crate. And then you get a trench full of, these rebel fighters. And then after the Battle of Crate, there's 10 people left that get on the Millennium Falcon. And you just sit there and you're just trying to do the math of it all. And you're thinking here, okay, so you start with 400 and then you lose probably 2/3 of them at least. And then you get down to that, and then seems like there's more of them during the actual battle. And then there's 10 of them at the end of that, because I guess they just all got absolutely destroyed during the Battle of Crate. And now there's 10 of them, and that's the entire resistance is left on the Millennium Falcon. And it's 10 people in the entire galaxy, and nobody showed up at the end to save them. And you're just sitting there and thinking, when is this group of people, 400 people, in a galaxy of trillions, when are these guys the bad guys and they're just terrorists out just trying to destroy everything? Because there's literally 400 of them compared to trillions of other people that just won't do anything. And I think that's the part that's just so unnecessary. Why did we have to do anything with numbers? We get it, they're underdogs against the First Order and all of this, but it just feels so unevenly matched, and it feels so small and so hopeless and just so weird that it just leaves you with this weird pit in your stomach, and then it just logically doesn't add up. And I don't know. It's just a really weird like plot hole that just irritates me because it's unnecessary. And if like they just wouldn't have said anything about numbers at all, then it's probably something I never would have even thought of. But it just doesn't make much sense.
There's
And it's just
a
one of
there's
those other little
literally
things that's irritating.
there's a small minority of listeners out there that are like, yeah, I hated that too, man. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding, Caleb. I appreciate your attention to detail because
No, look, I
never even
get
thought
it.
of
It's probably some stupid small thing, but I really didn't like there being 10 people left of the entire like resistance by the
They're
end of
all
this
smiling
movie.
at the end. They're all smiling.
Yeah, they're
and talking like nothing happened.
when literally like hundreds of their like fellow resistance fighters just died. And yeah, it's just it doesn't make and Luke died. Like it's just really weird feeling. Like and it's just really hopeless and I hate that. Like you get the hopelessness at the end of Empire, and that's the movie that everyone compares this to. But at the end of Empire, they meet back up with the fleet, and you see, oh, it's a rebel fleet together. They actually have the numbers to be able, and you don't get that in this movie. It's like, oh, they have the Millennium Falcon, and that's it.
Yeah.
To fight against the entire First Order. And I get, like, there's an underdog story to that, but it just, at a point, it just doesn't logically make any sense. And it's just irritating.
okay, well said. I'm glad do you feel better?
I guess so. Gabe thinks I'm retarded.
No, I don't. Look,
no.
I do not think you are retarded. I would never, ever in a million years say that. Listen, I think it was Mikey that said it best, right? Because we do punch counterpunch, right, every month. And Mikey said it best. He was like, "Look, this is nerd therapy." I attempt to make every episode feel like that. So if that was one thing that was irking you, I'm glad you got it off your chest, and I hope you feel better. Because for me, it was one of those things like whenever Post says like this is all that's left, it's like, yeah, y'all just had all your ships blown up and then all your friends killed. They tried so hard to make this feel like a Empire Strikes Back moment with so many things that happen in this movie, but it doesn't land in so many aspects. So no, Caleb, I don't think you're an idiot. Like, I think you're well-founded in your opinion. So there you have it.
It's a valid opinion.
It is a valid opinion, and I'm in agreement with you. Like, it just doesn't hit at all. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Elijah.
guys.
Caleb's like, I hate Star Wars. No. So, we've established that Rose and Finn is always going to be bad. Too much of nothing happening, and the fact that it's too long. The plot is just dumb. It feels like a toy commercial sometimes. Now it's been just a short period of time. We've been talking for over an hour. Let's talk about some good things. I'm going to start. This movie is gorgeous. It's a beautiful movie. There are so many things about this movie where I'm like, God, that is so just good looking. Crate, I mean, for your love letter to Hoth, well done. Awesome. Luke Skywalker. The treatment of that character is inherently interesting to me, whether you love it or hate it. The fact that it even exists, and here's the thing that makes it interesting: his past history that we've seen on screen, but also his history within the books. Like, there is a lot of interesting stuff happening with this character here. And I would say like this just adds to the legendary status of this character in general. Like, some people say like, oh yeah, this is the Luke Skywalker we deserved at the end of Mandalorian season 2. I'm like, yeah. All that does is make the Luke Skywalker we get in The Last Jedi like 100 times more interesting. So I don't know what your argument is there. Mm-hmm. Trying to compare the two is just nonsensical. You'll never convince me that Luke Skywalker is portrayed poorly here. Literally, his predecessors did the exact same thing. We saw the same journey. We've established that this is cyclical, and he is not the chosen one. Another good thing I'm going to say, I'm just going to go through all my positives and then open it up to you guys. The member these found within this movie, like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened and remember when that happened. Love it. Most of it comes from Luke. My final thing, Kylo Ren, a.k.a. Ben Solo, is the only consistently good thing in these three movies. I love Kylo Ren. I love, like, he gets made fun of for his outbursts in this movie, but literally it makes the things that he did in the first movie make way more sense. Like his reactionary, his reactionary whatever towards Rey, as well as his mother, as well as, to Snoke. It makes a lot of sense. Like, his arc makes sense in these 3 movies. To me. So
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all.
That's my 3 or 4 good things about this that I have to say about this movie.
Yeah, I think you're dead on all of those things, and I definitely agree. I can't imagine really arguing against like Luke's, kind of I don't know, bleakness. I don't know how you would say that, or just kind of how disgruntled he's become because he's been through it. Like he was trying to build the Jedi back from scratch, and then he made some terrible mistakes and it all crumbled and his students got killed and one of them is now terrorizing the galaxy.
Luke was never properly trained.
And yeah, Luke was he was trying to do that from scratch and from the wisdom of a couple of Force ghosts.
What did you expect? What did you expect? It blows my mind that people, it's like whenever people try to make the argument against Goku versus Superman, and it's like, no, dude, it's okay. Like, Goku would lose. It's okay that this happened to Luke. He had so many good moments. You can't stay the best forever.
Yeah. And I can understand too how people would be upset if he remained a grouchy old geezer who didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. Like Rey comes and he, finds another Padawan, if you want to call her that, but another trainee that kind of turns him around and, motivates him to get back into the fight and, make an incredible sacrifice for the resistance and for the cause, for good. And I think that all works. And I love him, like his portrayal. Like I said before, my only problem is him, dusting in the end. But, I think his character is awesome. And I love his, relationship with Rey. It's really, really cool.
Elijah, got anything to add to that?
Did I give my one disappointment yet, or did I already do that? I can't remember.
What was your one disappointment?
Actually, there's 2. The first one was I really hate that they kind of Disneyfied this movie with the jokes and stuff, like Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. That totally unnecessary, and all the dumb jokes that they pulled. I couldn't stand it. It felt too campy to me, and it was very cringeworthy. And then the second one was the one thing that I disliked about this movie. You're going to tell me that you're going to be in a hangar full of rebel soldiers and hold up the 5 people that are in charge and around all these other soldiers and get away with it for as long as they did? I mean, literally they pull guns on the admiral, on the captains, on the commanders, right there, right in front of everybody. And no one does a thing. They just business as usual in the background, loading crates. Let's go. No one's going to stop that, and kind of a mutiny kind of a thing. Anyway, so that was the 2 things that I disliked about the movie. But going back to Luke,
I want to play devil's advocate with you for a minute.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
This resistance is militant, but they are not organized. There is not holding them to the same, because what you're talking about, imperial forces, it would have been like, oh yeah, kill that guy, immediately. I don't see that happening, amongst the ranks of the rebels, personally.
Well, maybe not just a straight up execution right there, but you're not going to at least take notice that your admiral has a gun pulled on him, and not just one, but 6 of them. You're not going to notice that at all. Which I guess is splitting hairs, I mean, it's written into this movie for a reason. It's got to work, but that's just one thing. Okay, I could get it if they did it in a hallway. Poe came out in a hallway, stopped her, talked to her for a minute, and then when she decided to not share anything with him, then you go ahead with the mutiny. Don't do it in front of the whole militia.
Or even if they did it on the bridge,
yes,
that would make more sense.
That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
But anyways,
that is true.
I'm definitely with you, Elijah.
Yeah.
I'll play a devil's advocate to his first problem though.
okay.
I will say I do not like when Luke throws a lightsaber over his shoulder.
It's so
Like
dumb.
that's it's really dumb, and there's so much sentimentality with that specific lightsaber. Like that's his father's lightsaber that he was holding when his hand was chopped off by Darth
Yes.
Vader.
Yes.
Like the idea that he would throw that over his shoulder is really really stupid. But I cannot laugh. Like I'll laugh every single time when he's teaching Rey and he tells her to reach out to feel the Force, and he has the branch and starts touching his
Okay,
hand.
that is-
I love that so
That's
much.
one
It's
exception.
so funny.
That's one exception, but it's just like I could tell that the quip humor from Marvel
Yeah,
was seeping into
yeah.
this movie, and I just there's no place for that in Star Wars, in my opinion, just because of what Star Wars movies before this, were like before this. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I mean, it is like you can see with especially with this trilogy how Disney had figured out a formula to make money with the Marvel movies.
oh for sure,
And they tried to use that same formula to a certain extent with the Star Wars movies, and it kind of hits especially hard in this one. Yeah, it's kind of jarring.
but no, I agree with you. The whole branch with hitting her hand and stuff that's probably one of the best scenes in Star Wars, quite honestly. So
Yeah,
no arguments here from that one. But
I
going
just
back to go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. I was
No, I
just
was
gonna say, like, it with Luke, like, that is a Luke moment
Oh yeah, for sure.
because
100%.
he knows what it's like to have a religious experience with the Force, and like, you know, that's him kind of trolling her, and it's like I love that, and personally, out of all the things that Ryan Johnson decided to do, Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder falls in line with who Luke is at that point in time, in my opinion.
You think?
I do. I mean, as someone who's literally cut himself off from the Force completely, and in that moment in time, cares nothing about anything Force-related. Yeah, to me it makes sense, and I have no... Do I think it's funny? No, I don't think it's funny. I just think it's like, well, yeah, okay. He's kind of a tool right
Yeah.
now, I guess,
Maybe that
I
makes
can't-
sense.
yeah.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah,
sorry.
I just can't imagine anyone laughing at that moment because I remember seeing that in the theater, and it's like a moment you've waited a couple of years for because you saw everything leading up to it in The Force Awakens, and it's just incredibly disappointing and just like, oh.
That has to be
So-
one of those moments where literally, like, Mark Hamill was like, wait, what? You're having
Yeah.
me do what? And Ryan's like, yeah, man, throw it over your shoulder. It'll be awesome. The fans will love it. He's like, no, the fans won't love it. Like, you realize Luke hasn't held this lightsaber since it got chopped off of his hand, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just, I mean, it's...
I get what you're saying, Gabe. Like that action does fit to his character a lot and where he's at in this point in time. But it was done in a humorous way, in my opinion, and that's not what I dig. Like if he had absolute disdain for it and made it known in a dramatic motion, not a whimsical, kind of a thing, then it would have a little more impact to me.
Yeah. They tried to make a joke out of it, and it did
Yes.
not land.
It didn't
at all.
land. It didn't land
Yeah.
at all. At least not with me. I mean, people in the movie theater laughed when I watched it first, but I didn't because
I remember
it didn't hit home.
someone in our theater was just like, oh,
Yeah.
but I don't take pleasure in it, but I mean, it did make sense for Luke's character, I think.
Yeah. And going back to Luke's character, so now the things that I do appreciate, I when I say that Luke's character is portrayed badly in this film, I don't think we're touching on the same thing. Him being a grouchy old man and not wanting to train Rey, totally fine with me. I like that makes a whole lot of sense. But and even having a last minute turn of heart with Yoda coming to see him. That, by the way, that scene is the icing on the cake for that movie. That's what makes this movie a great movie, in my opinion, is the scene between Luke and Yoda. Anyway, but projecting himself across the galaxy, why? why not lift the X-wing up out of the bay like you did in the next movie and physically go and help your friends and physically see your sister, for what you know is going to be the last time? Why do it from a rock?
I think it was for shock factor. I think this is a whole other discussion, in terms of just like trying to talk about different visions for this movie. And unfortunately, Jim, we are running out of time because I have another podcast I have to do at 9:30. But go ahead, Caleb.
No, I was just going to say, I like it projecting up until when he literally gets dusted, because I love him, like, when Kylo realizes he can't kill him, and he says, see you around, like, when Luke says, see you around, kid, like, I love it. Like, I love that so much.
Yeah,
I loved all of their conversation, and then I was like, oh, I'm not going to get any more of that ever.
I don't mind him blowing off into a dust cloud. I would expect that that's how it would go anyway. Was it a shame that it was at the end of this movie? Yeah. But, that's how I always expect Luke to go. Just the whole projection thing was just a lot of holes in that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I think we've reached the point in the discussion. Go ahead, Caleb.
We haven't talked about one of the best things about this movie, just really briefly. The scene with Rey and Kylo after Snoke has been killed, and that scene and that twist is really, really good. And the scene of them fighting the Praetorian Guard is, in my opinion, probably the best, most choreographed, like, comes across as the best lightsaber scene in all of Star Wars.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a lightsaber duel.
No, it wasn't. And I think that's the thing. It makes it so different, and it is incredible. Like, really, I don't see how you could watch that scene and not be on the edge of your seat. It is so well choreographed. The acting is incredible. The emotion that both Rey and Kylo are using, like, it is so stinking awesome. And the Praetorian Guard are so cool. Yep. And they don't necessarily go out like chumps. Like, they are giving it to them.
Oh yeah, they're giving all they got.
It is awesome. It is so stinking, and it leads immediately into, like, this realization from Rey that Kylo hasn't turned, and that's kind of another twist on a twist. Like, you get that twist that, Kylo kills Snoke, and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, he's turned. And then after that entire fight where they fight together, it's like, oh no, he hasn't.
That's a pretty emotional scene.
It is awesome. It is so stinking cool, and I'll watch the heck out of that scene, like, anytime.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, I wish we had, like, another hour to talk about. Like, this movie is just so...
It's complex.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's one of those things, like, that's part of my argument as why we have to applaud this movie in some ways, is that it got us talking about Star Wars in a way that hasn't been talked about in a long time.
Yeah,
and I mean, it sure as heck is a way more interesting conversation than talking about The Force Awakens. And there's no denying that. And the fact that we can argue about it for a couple hours, we can go back and forth on it for a couple of hours. Like, there is so much to dissect and hate on, but love, and, like, there's so much to talk about. And to me, that's what Star Wars boils down to, is, like, what is fun to talk about. And I applaud this movie for trying different things. And, there's a lot of things I would have done differently, but I'm glad this movie exists. So what do you guys say we go to our final summaries for this movie? What do you think?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, I'll start. Focusing on characters is great, but the plot has no backbone that makes some of these characters' stories worthwhile. I love the Luke stuff because we know him already. We know the journey he's been on. We know Luke. Like, to say that this isn't a natural progression for him after the things that happen is dumb. Especially excuse me, I sneezed.
Oh, three in a row.
3 times. 3 for 3.
Wow.
Luke went from being this guy on Tatooine to being a Jedi Master. And to see he had relatively succeeded for a while. So to see him fall from grace, would it really make that much sense for him to be in the position that he's in, I think it is. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like it fits into the mythos of the character very well, especially since it happened to the two people that he revered most in his life, Jedi-wise. I will die on that hill. We don't know Finn, Rose, Poe. We don't know them. I don't care about them. They are the reason why this movie gets so much hate, all of those characters. As a Star Wars fan, there's parts of me that really love this thing. But as a wannabe critic, my score has to be met with a 7 out of 10 for this movie. I think it falls into the category of being watchably good. And it still remains my favorite out of the 3 so far. But I could see that being swayed very easily with the next one, which has its own set of problems. So that's my final summary. Caleb?
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I'll go next. The good in this movie, for me, is all mostly between Rey, Luke, and Kylo. And their interactions in this movie is truly incredible and makes this movie really amazing. Added into some incredible visual effects and some really awesome action, and it makes this movie a fun joy to watch. But I'll still remember going into this movie after watching The Force Awakens. I had 3 things that I was really looking forward to. I was really looking forward to seeing what happened when Rey handed the lightsaber back to Luke. I was really looking forward to figuring out who in the world Snoke is and where he came from. And I was really looking forward to finding out who Rey is and where she came from. And I think when I left the theater, part of the reason why I felt so bittersweet is because I didn't get super gratifying answers to either of those 3. Like we talked about, when Rey hands the lightsaber back to Luke, he flips it over his shoulder nonchalantly as a joke that just doesn't land. Hated that. So that left me really early in the movie with a bad taste in my mouth. Then we find out that, Snoke just gets killed, which is a great twist, but we don't know anything about him or where he came from or anything about it. And we get a little bit of that in the next movie, but you're just left wanting. And it just leaves even more question marks in your head. And then there's a whole thing with that third question about who Rey is and where she came from, and about how her parents were filthy junk traders who are dead on Jakku. And that is not a satisfying answer to that question. Those 3 things just left me with this unsatisfied taste. And when you add in all of these extra characters and bad storylines and extra filler that just doesn't really pay off, it leaves you with just this. It takes a movie that is just beautiful and has some incredibly cool Star Wars stuff, and it just weakens it to where it becomes kind of a mediocre movie. And so with that, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Elijah?
So you guys pretty much covered a lot of the disappointing factors of this movie. I can't think of really anything off the top of my head to add to that. But some of the redeeming factors, we get to see, again, a lot of lore in this movie that we haven't seen before. I mean, just the quick 30 seconds to a minute long scene of seeing inside Luke's hut. We see so much in that one scene of all the things he's collected and kept dear to his heart. I mean, he sunk his X-Wing. You'd think that'd be one of his main things that he would keep pristine, because that has sentimental value to him. But all these little trinkets and things that he's kept, that means something to him. And then also having the scene between Luke and Yoda, that was really cool. Seeing the old hut that was hollowed out from a tree with the, sacred text in it, having that conversation with Yoda burning it down, knowing that the texts weren't even in there. They're in the Millennium Falcon with Rey, just to prove a point to Luke that he doesn't have to hold on to these traditions, and all the Jedi can evolve. It pretty much is what it boils down to.
Read them, have you?
Yes, and page turners there or not. Another quip that's funny, but just didn't land perfectly with me.
Well, it did for me.
It did it
Yeah,
for you.
it did for me too.
Yeah,
I
mean,
love
I was
everything
like, yep,
Yoda says.
that's Yoda.
it got me a chuckle, but it just I don't know. And then I guess that's pretty much all the good things I have to say about it that I can think off the top of my head. I was a little disappointed because this really mirrored Empire Strikes Back, but in a different order to me, and I wasn't a fan of that. I want Empire to be Empire, and let's write a new movie. But yeah, for the most part, great movie. I picked up a lot of things that I didn't see the first couple times I watched it, and I have a better appreciation for it now. But as a Star Wars fan, and I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. As a Star Wars fan, as a wannabe critic, I'll give it an 8.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of the best reviews we've had so far. So,
I feel like we just dragged on this movie the entire time.
No, it was great.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
That's probably mostly my fault. So I'll apologize to the listeners because I probably came off pretty heated at times.
No, there's
I'm
literally
sorry.
like 50%. There's 50% of the Star Wars audience going like, "Yeah, Caleb was right." So, but no, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I always, hold your opinions in high esteem, and I really am happy that you are here to review this with me. And I can't wait. Elijah, can you make it for The Rise of Skywalker next time?
You call me, I'll be here.
All right, there you have it. I would love to do more of a proper outro and all this other stuff, but I do have a podcast coming up in just a couple of minutes. So we're going to leave it at there, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to get in touch with us, email us at thewannabecollective@gmail.com. We would gladly love to hear what your take is on this movie. But until that time, gentlemen, I think it's let us know where we can find you. Caleb, you go first.
At Chief NY 18 on Twitter.
And Elijah?
Beer Bros Eastside, Instagram, Beer Bros East, Twitter, Beer Bros Eastside @gmail.com.
Okay, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And say goodbye, gents.
Stay
Adios,
classy.
amigos.
All right, bye-bye. Well, once again, thank you so much for showing up today. I really, really appreciate it. Again, if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. I know that's the thing that all the YouTubers do. Everyone's asking to sub. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, and who knows, you might even see a video every now and then that you actually like or may be interested in. We got podcasts, we got Let's Plays, we got all kinds of stuff for all kinds of fandoms. So make sure you check that out. I would seriously appreciate it, and I would love to see you around here more. I am Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic.